Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I'm very excited for today's show because we have in studio with us Anthony Lygizos from Footers Catering, one of my favorite people. We have you on once a month, and I'm so excited to have you in studio. You've got a lot going on.
Oh, yes. Always at Footers. It's crazy. First off, it's great to be back. Yeah. I enjoy this quite a bit. So, yeah, I mean, this time of year, we're, kind of winding down a little bit from the busy summer, but it's phenomenal. We get to work with a lot of nonprofit clients, which is a little bit of shift from all the weddings that we do during the summer. So, a couple weeks ago, we had the Book Lovers Ball, which is the Denver Public Library's annual fundraiser, and it's one of my absolute favorite events that we do because it's on 3 different floors of the library. It's a plated dinner for 700 people. We have dining areas, 6 different dining areas, all in the stacks. So it's really a unique experience for the guests, but also a challenge for our team to be able to pull that off. And it's awesome. Our team did a phenomenal job and was very proud of them.
I would imagine. So is 700? That's huge.
That's a big event.
A lot of people.
Yes.
So that's not average for you then?
No, I mean, we have a handful of events that we have one this weekend. Tennyson Center is another great client of ours, and they've got 800 people that we'll be feeding on Saturday. So, we've done, plated dinners up over 1,000 people. Most of our events tend to be a little bit smaller than that, but yeah, it's always a challenge and it's lots of fun.
Oh, I bet. And it's got to be quicker paced, right? Than than your typical.
They all have all events have their different challenges, but it's an adrenaline rush.
Yes. So last we talked, you were in the running for one of the greatest places to work, best places to work.
Greatest works too. Yes, I like that. Yeah, we find out here at the next show. We'll have news on if we win that award or not. But
I am very excited for that. We also have lots of events coming up. One of my favorite is it's our second annual industry awards, and this year's theme is Champions in Industry Awards. Okay. And you guys are catering that for us.
We sure are.
Yeah, December 3rd, and so I heard that some of our employees today got to do a little tasting.
They might have been over at Footers, yes.
But yes, very exciting stuff. So we're honored to partner with you on that as well.
Of course.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and if you would introduce your guest for us today.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited. We've been joking it's the Anthony show. My guest today is another Anthony, and not just another Anthony, but another Anthony L. Anthony Lygizos has been a friend of mine and have a ton of respect for him. We were honored to recently cater his wedding, which anytime somebody invites us to be part of that special day, it's really something cool, and we really do treat it as an honor. But he is also the co-founder of Leven Deli, which recently opened up just off of Broadway and is phenomenal. If you haven't been, you need to go and check it out, and has a lot of the same philosophy around culture. So we're going to have a great conversation. Anthony, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So excited.
Bring me cookies anytime. You can come on for many shows.
Be careful what you wish for. So yeah, let's just jump right in. You've been in the restaurant industry for a long time. Talk to us about how you got in and why you got into the restaurant industry.
Totally. Thanks for kicking it off like that, and thanks for having me. I got into the restaurant industry because I had a very crafty and wise mom. I was a very talkative kid, and especially in the classroom, and when I couldn't stop socializing, my mom saw an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons, and she said, "You need to go get a job in a restaurant, and you will be a star, and you'll love it." And I was hooked. I was hooked at first sight. I was working at my cousin's cookie factory of cookies again, just down the street from my house, and I would ride my bike back and forth, and I saw there was a restaurant opening there that was a remodel of a space that had been vacant for some time. Popped my head in. It was a Cajun New Orleans neighborhood kind of joint called Bluegrass in Highland Park, Illinois, and it was my first restaurant job, and started at host, worked my way up to maitre d', and then to every position around the restaurant throughout high school, and the rest is kind of history. Yeah, so loved it, loved the entrepreneurial spirit of it. Was lucky enough to attend DU, and forget you're an Oregon guy.
Yeah, go Ducks.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. And while I was at DU, I was focusing on business and wasn't sure which discipline in business to hone in on. And I had a very wise professor take a chance and meet with me and look at my resume, and he said, "You've got a ton of restaurant experience. That seems to be your calling." And I had always viewed it as a job that I would work as a side hustle while I would go through school. And coming out of school, I'd have the suit and tie job and be behind the desk and review numbers and spreadsheets and so forth.
Boring
yeah,
job.
totally. And I joke from there, from my first job out of school, I've gotten more casual every job I've had, to where I can work in shorts and t-shirt now. But I went in. I switched majors from general business to hotel, restaurant, tourism management, the Fritz Nobel School of Education at of hotel restaurant management at DU, and after that I started my career in restaurant management.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I love that path, because I think that that's something that we can talk more about with the people that are coming up through the restaurant industry. That it doesn't have to be just a side job, that you can make a career and make a decent living. And I know that's something that you've focused on, which we'll chat about in a little bit. But you're proof of it, and that's what's really cool.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what you see that's going on in the restaurant industry as a whole in Colorado right now.
Totally. In Colorado is a very unique market. It's a really special market, and I think it's partly due to the economy in Denver, which is just excellent and continues to improve and grow, and has walks of all different types of lives and people from different sides of the country. We've become this melting pot, and people craving different flavors and foods and bringing them with them as well.
Yes.
And I think also because of the growth curve that Denver in general as well has gone through in the last 10 years or so, it's very entrepreneurial, and it's also very collaborative. And I think that there's a mix of those different ingredients that is resulting in this really unique environment here. I think in general, on a national scene, and I think you were alluding to that, Anthony, that the restaurant industry and catering industry as well is becoming is being viewed and being considered and led as much more of a profession, an established profession, an entrepreneurial endeavor versus a illicit mafia kind of underbelly, right?
Yeah, that it historically had the if you weren't a chain and weren't in a big corporation, then that was the connotation of what you might be.
Yeah, totally. I was lucky enough to go to New York for this amazing networking meeting called the Alice Elliott Underground Food Tour about 2 weeks ago. And we saw entrepreneur after entrepreneur who were just beaming and glowing with pride. And it's seen as the new cool job. It's no longer VC or, investment banking. It's entrepreneurial endeavors, and food and beverage is one of those outlets or, conduits. Denver and Colorado, however, stands out on this pedestal, and you can see it especially when you go to other markets where it's so collaborative. This is an example of it. Eat Denver is an example of it.
Yes.
The players in the industry who mentor nonstop, John Schlegel, who turns around after building Snooze and is a adjunct professor at DU to help foster the next up-and-coming class, if you will, of starters, is a extension of it. The co-starters program at the Champa, the Commons on Champa, is a extension of that. You don't see that in other size cities, and maybe it's partly due to the size and the fact that so many businesses are starting up right now, and everyone's saying, "Are we doing okay? Has anybody else been through this?" Where it's competitive, but it's collaborative.
Yes.
So it's really awesome.
I totally agree. It's cool to see that, and to see the restaurateurs supporting one another too. I mean, Eat Denver, you mentioned, what a phenomenal concept to get together all the independent restaurants to say, hey, let's band together and help one another, because ultimately, the rising tide raises all boats, right?
Exactly.
And the people that get that, you see them really thriving, and I think that that's something that obviously I am passionate about, working with other people and hearing what they're doing and how we can complement and work together. I think I took that for granted for a while until I started talking to people across the country, and they said that's different. That doesn't happen, you know, in our city. That doesn't happen over here.
Totally.
So we're very fortunate to be in that spot.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Leven Deli. You know, you just 11 weeks open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, your baby, huh?
Baby, toddler, not even.
Talk about the you know, concept and kind of how it all came to fruition.
Awesome. Leven, thank you for asking. Leven is the result of a desire for kind of self-serving, to be honest with you, is how the dream started for 3 things that I wanted to change in my life. And I knew I loved the restaurant industry, and I was set on that. I knew that I wanted to stay working in the restaurant industry, but I was over working at night, and I had fallen in love with the amazing woman who I recently married at this amazing wedding that Footers did this remarkable catering job at. And she is part of the snooze team, and I saw that she was working during the day, and she loved it, and it still had all of the phenomenal benefits of the restaurant industry without the negatives of the late hours and the problems that come with the late work. So I knew that I wanted to stay working in the restaurant industry, but I wanted to work during the day. I wanted to change my position to a position where I could grow in terms of responsibility and earning potential. And I wanted to also start a business where we could grow it together and we could take on other partners as well. So, and be in Denver, Colorado. So it was be in Denver, work during the day, and take on partners and also earn responsibility and earning potential by doing so. So, I had originally thought I wanted to develop a wine bar concept, and I realized that those were my 3 true goals while starting to really consider this wine bar concept.
Wine bar at 9 a.m.
It's tough. Sounds okay to me.
My kind of wine bar.
Right.
Not judging. Not judging.
Totally. And you might be onto something there.
There is a market.
Totally. So yeah, the idea kind of spawned from there. What kind of high quality food can we really geek out on and have a ton of fun with? And so deli was one of the opportunities. I'm from Chicago. I spent a lot of time in Detroit, spent some time in New York, and loved that cuisine, and couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. And it was really, I wanted that handheld delicious sandwich that I could drive around with while I was starting to learn the real estate markets while looking at the wine bar and model. And I said, you know, maybe there's an opportunity here. I started to write a business plan and get all the pieces together and started to really look for real estate. And I was trying to work on a pastrami recipe, which is a lengthy and difficult endeavor. And at the time, I was working at this amazing restaurant called Potager, and the chef there I had a ton of respect for and had such great command over food. And I said, Luke, would you be interested in consulting on a recipe for me? And he said, what do you have going on here? And I said, I've been trying to make pastrami, and I'm having a hard time getting it to where I want it to be. I was on the 64th rendition of it. It takes about 2 weeks to make. Yeah, so it's going on 2 years of making it. He said, you want me just to try to make it for you, and then we can talk about it? And I said, sure. He took a crack at it. His first try was 1,000 times better than my 64th. And when we got to talking, he said, you know, I too want to work during the day and I think our goals align, and I'd be really interested in doing this together. So that was kind of the history, and then we had a pause, and then what Leven is today is the product of Luke and my collaboration. So it's Luke's cooking in his style, which is kind of California Mediterranean cooking style and an ingredient list mixed with the Jewish deli background. So pastrami meets potager.
Awesome. And it is delicious.
Thank you.
Having had experience trying the food, it's phenomenal, and a great spot that you've created there. All right, let's move in a little bit to creating a great place to work. That tends to be the theme that I like to talk about during these themes. So jumping in, Denver, I know you're probably faced with the same thing. We're at historically, low unemployment levels. What have you guys done to attract good people?
Yeah, that was a daunting question that we really tried to face and tried to crack in starting the business. Probably the thing we put the most time and effort into, really. You're right. It is a difficult thing to do, and I think just like anything out there, the more you put in, the more you get out. And we really tried to hit the staffing and the labor and the employment and culture side of things from different angles, and during opening and pre-opening and before building the business, as we were building the business, I should say. We kind of created a brand around marketing our how we tried to attract employees. We created this feel and this brand, and we worked with some branding pros, a couple of people out of Chicago, to help us create this brand around it. And what we did is we had the benefit of being and thinking and living like restaurant people, because that's who we are. We aren't owners, right? We're making this transition, but we see things first through the employee set of eyes and lens. And so the first set of questions is that we addressed where we said, as employees, what are we really looking for? Okay, and from there, then we can, once we know where we want to get to, then we can try to figure out how to get there. And so we identified the goals of what we really wanted, and some of them coincided with those goals that I just mentioned. So one of them was pay. Okay, so if you look at Craigslist, for instance, I'd say typically about half, if not more so than half, or a little bit more so than half, is DOE, depending on experience.
Right.
I said that's really hard to stomach as somebody shopping for a job, because you need great culture for a sustainable job. You need great people, but as one of the employees who works at Leven right now said, those don't pay the bills, right? And so you have to have a salary attached to it, and knowing it is a necessity, in my opinion. This is, there's no right or wrong. This is my perspective on it. Right?
That's why you're here.
Thank you.
We want that perspective.
Yeah. So I said, okay, we got to figure out what people are going to be making here, and that's a little bit harder in the restaurant industry because tips and gratuity is such a big part of that.
Right.
So we tried to put the ball back in our court we guarantee a wage. Okay, so we said, if we have to hedge our bets here, we have to say we're going to guarantee this. We're going to kind of take the salary off the table, or take the tips off the table, and turn it into a salary. So what can we guarantee? And we looked at the pay structure and the tip structure and how that all comes together, and we said, if we have to subsidize, or what are we willing to pay? What can the business threshold tolerate in order to establish a guaranteed rate per employee per hour, so that they can actually know that information and budget off of it? Okay, so we established that at $15 an hour, and that's aggressive. We said we can guarantee that, and that's with tips included. Okay. And however, we said that is a livable wage at 15. What we strive for is a thrivable wage, and that's $20 an hour.
Awesome.
And so we guarantee 15. They'll never make less than 15 as long as the business is established, and this is a priority for us without question.
Yep.
But we're not doing. We haven't hit it. We're not in balance. We're not in check if they're not making $20 an hour. So we've only hit $20 an hour a few days so far.
Okay.
A small handful of days, 5 days, I believe. But we're at 19. We're at 1919. We're at 1917, 1975. Quite a few days, and we'll get there. We will. We've got plenty of room to grow. So that was one thing. The other thing that we looked for are, what are those other components that people want out of a job, and we thought one of them was our hours as well, so working during the day, and then growth potential, having a career, which is an extension of restaurants becoming more professional, right? If they can't have a career path out of this, how can we ask them to look at it seriously? And then what we did is we took this and we realized that if you're asking somebody to attend an interview as an employer, right, you're asking the employee to do quite a bit, to dress professionally, prepare their resume, show up on time, show up early, hopefully, spend time, be on stage, be judged, right? Yeah. These are all things that you're asking the employee to do, potential employee to do, applicant to do. From an employer standpoint, what are we doing besides just showing up? Yeah. So we had this material printed. In other words, the vision was similar to, if you go to look at a college tour as a prospective student, leaving that, the universities are smart enough to say, thank you for your time and your interest. Here is a gift from us to you. This is the packet of what student life will look like here. You're investing into us, and your tuition is your investment in your time and your opportunity, and picking our school as your alma mater, et cetera, is the buy-in. We're going to give you a great education, and we're going to tell you what the next 4 years of life look like here by putting this in your hands. So we use that as a model, and we created this manual of what, and it was this sexy little manual of what working at Leven will look like. Here's your potential shifts. Here's your pay. Here's how the structure works. Here's what the job descriptions are. Here's the growth model that we have in place, and we want you buying in, and we're showing you that we are trying to earn your trust by presenting this to you and show you that we are putting our money where our mouth is, and that we put time and effort and energy and resources into our people, and this is the first example of that. So that seemed to work really well.
That's awesome.
I love that concept,
Thank you.
especially because when you go to an interview and the employer asks if you have any questions. I don't know about you, but I'm already overwhelmed, and my pits have been sweating for an hour for this interview, so I don't know my questions right away.
Totally.
So it's lovely that you have that right away for him.
Thank you. Yeah, totally.
I love that. And make them feel special. It sets the tone for what they can expect moving forward.
Yes, you got it.
It's phenomenal.
And that was step one. And then we found really high quality applicants, which was amazing. And it took some work. That manual took weeks to create and to make it look professional and get the concepts boiled down to something that we could produce. Yeah. And it happened slowly, and business is one of those things where you put a lot of time and energy into it, and you're going to have delayed gratification from it. Is this working? I'm not sure if this is working, but slowly but surely we started to get over 100 applicants a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because of word of mouth and people hearing about it and talking about it, or other things that you were doing to market for those open positions?
So with that concept, we had panels created that projected this, and we put it on our storefront during construction. We Instagrammed it. We had it printed. We hit it on social media. We emailed it out. So it wasn't
just used for the interview process. It was also in advance of that. That's
correct.
That's great.
We tried to hit it on as many different conduits as we could.
Yeah.
As many different prongs as we could. Yeah.
Good for you.
Maybe 12 or so. Between putting them up in places where potential employees would worked, or lived, and went to school, and shopped, and walked by, and so forth.
And it stands out from that typical job posting.
Right. So just different enough. So, yeah.
And I do love some of your job postings, and we'll get into this.
Thanks.
But one of the things that I really appreciate is that you lay out the expectations in the job. I mean, too many people put you have to do this list of responsibilities, but when you have things like beautifully displaying our food, and you'll counter employees walk guests through the ordering process. While showcasing Leven's quality products, they encourage guests to try everything. All of a sudden, you're setting an expectation that's going to carry over, and I found that unique. And for top-notch, high-quality people, they're drawn to that. They see that and they say, that's for me. And the people that are on the lower end of it are intimidated by it and are like, whoa, that sounds too hard. I don't think I'll apply.
You hit the nail on the head, and that was something that we learned through this process. You're speaking from so much experience working with so many people, but I'm learning. You're absolutely correct. People like structure, like expectations. They like vision and leadership. And some of the people that we have come work for us were teachers and engineers and people who are working in solar and people who were managing other businesses, and they are drawn to that structure and they see something in it. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, we're going to be right back with the Anthony Show here on Connect and Collaborate. So stay tuned after this break. We'll be right back. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. And check out cobrt.com/radio-podcast for this show and more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, here with Anthony Lambatos of Footers Catering. I would like to be able to speak today. And also Anthony Lygizos. All right. Fantastic. I had to write it out phonetically, so I would remember that. And you are with Leven Deli, and we were just talking about how you're in your infancy, but you did a lot of research before you got into it. But I'm going to let you take it away with continuing this conversation.
Yeah, we're going to jump back in, creating a great place to work. You mentioned two things that I think were important. Compensation, when we talk about that at Footers and when I talk about it with other people, there's this benchmark that people have to feel fairly compensated, and once they feel fairly compensated, then things above that kind of don't matter nearly as much. And so we talked about compensation, which for you and what you're doing, I love, because it's above what most restaurants offer to start out working there.
Totally.
And then you also mentioned growth, opportunities for growth, and some stability within hours. What do you think the other things are holistically that are important when companies are setting out to create a great place to work?
Sure. Yeah, I think lifestyle's super important. And when we mentioned the deli was kind of self-serving, right? It started, and I wanted to have nights off, and I didn't know what that felt like, or holidays off as well, you know. And we didn't really realize that in following this pathway, that we were really creating like 9-to-5 jobs for ourselves. But that's exactly what ended up happening.
Sure.
But so I think that, you know, I've worked for some people in the past that tried to. That put a lot of effort in their approach to creating holistic working feel or atmosphere was to incorporate those things into work. So cleanse week and yoga week and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And I personally, that didn't register as well with me when I had to work until 3:00 in the morning every other day of the week, except for that one week where I might have a couple nights off. But that was me, you know, and that's again, like we talked, this is a spectrum kind of deal, right? So for me, I think one thing is having a lifestyle, and here work-life balance, you know, thrown around a lot. And I love to work, and so in restaurants are very consuming.
Yes.
But I'm happiest when I'm there often.
Sure.
But however, I wanted the flexibility to have nights off and always have those off for the team. And so schedule is huge for us. Knowing the schedule, having a consistent schedule, having a routine that is sustainable for our employees, and having them know it and be able to rely on it is important.
Consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Potager did an unbelievable job of that in the restaurant world. That's kind of an anomaly of having a consistent schedule day in and day out. There's no calling to cover.
Right.
You know, it's just, it is what it is. And so
I know I'm working every day from 3 to whatever time it is, and I'm good with that. And I can count on it, and I can plan around it.
Yes. And I can plan a trip in January because I know that that's what my schedule is going to be in January, and that allows me to live life. So that's really big for us. And then, you know, it's we try to do a lot of little things, like take out any kind of animosity that can be created in the workplace. In restaurants, that happens all the time, front versus back of the house, you know, AM versus PM. And it takes knowing how you know, having worked in so many different restaurants over the years and so forth, just knowing how that starts and what sparks those feelings, and trying to identify those and try to eliminate them in the administrative side. So in other words, like, we're going to have a position that bridges that schedule and handles the transition so that one person's in control of it, not a silent, seamless, and blind handoff, right? Sure. And so we try to do a lot of that as well. And then you know, it's funny, I asked a really wise mentor of mine, this guy Adam Schlegel, right? The guy we were lucky enough to have as our officiant of our wedding. He gives amazing advice. I asked Adam one time, Adam, what is culture in the workplace? And he said, he thought about it for a second. He said, it's kind of just who the leaders are. Right? You know, it kind of stems from that. That's where it's born. That's, you know, and it's part of changing my concept of what leadership is, right? It really is, are you a boss or are you a leader, right? And if you're a leader, you care about those things, and you are conscious about those things, and you work at them, and you put energy into them, and it is maybe then there's more culture there, you know?
Right.
And so Luke and I talk about a lot of those concepts and are aware of them, and we have weekly temperatures on them, and we check in on them, and we have this whole very geeky concept called visioning, where we do a lot
not
of
geeky.
writing on these things,
Yeah.
and we publish it and we discuss it, and then we have a joint vision stems from that, and then we have visions for different aspects of our company, and we try our best to follow them, and if not, we talk about why we're not, and then we have to have a pretty darn good reason why not.
And do you have a coach guiding you through that process, or is that something that you're policing on your own?
I wish we had a coach. That would be great. If you're ever bored on a Friday afternoon, please swing by around 3 o'clock. No, we do. We have to police it on our own, and that's kind of, the vision is the police. We do it when we're in a fresh kind of vanilla or neutral state of mind, and usually they're futuristic, or we're visioning for future events, and we then we revisit them as we approach those different benchmark timelines, and see where we're at with hiring, where we're at with day one, where we're at with day one of training, day 5 of training, opening, etc.
And that's phenomenal, because most people don't do that. I mean, business owners across the board, they're good at what they do, and they focus on execution. And they focus on execution and execution and execution, and they don't ever take that step back. And I've had a lot of conversations with our team recently over this idea of are you busy, or are you productive and effective with your time? Like, what are you really doing? And sometimes it's those two things, contrast, that we have to take a step back and slow down and almost not do anything. That you need to spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes a day, just almost in thought, and not responding to emails, and not fixing something, or not meeting with somebody, and yet so many people don't make the time to do that. So totally. I applaud you for being intentional about that, and I know it's part of it's what's made you successful right out of the gate, and will continue to make you successful. So
thank you. No, you're absolutely correct. We read about visioning in a series of books on business by this amazing deli called Zingerman's. Yes. And it's other people who aren't in the deli market can read them, and they started as a series of journal articles in Inc. magazine, I believe. At least the first couple are, I believe. And they articulate this concept of visioning, and it's expectations or intentions, I think is the term you just threw out, which is exactly what it is. And when we read it, we said, this sounds a little bit hokey, but heck, these guys seem to really have done a great job, and they're doing something right? And so if they say they're such firm believers in it, let's give it a shot. The first time we did it, we had these feelings of, this is hokey and this is unnecessary, and I was also scared. Scared, because what you're doing is you're establishing your own expectations for yourself. Right. There's nothing more terrifying than looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm going to do this, and then I got to do it. Right. And that's really a difficult concept. It's the same thing as a business plan, right? I'm putting my money where my mouth is, right? And so that's a huge step one. It's not, starting's the hardest part, but this is really tough to say, I'm going to be more effective tomorrow, right? And then I either am or I am not. But saying I'm going to be is really, really difficult. And so we say a lot of that stuff with culture, and we write a lot about culture, and then we do it or we don't. And if we don't, then we only have one person to blame, or in our case, 2 people to blame. Sure.
But you're being thoughtful about it. And I think that's another thing that people want a quick fix. They want to throw something at it. They want to throw a perk, put a ping pong table in the office and say, okay, we did that, and let's move on. And they forget to think about that this is an ongoing thing. And I learned this the hard way early on, that if you're not focusing on it all the time and every day, it can slip away from you like that. We had a couple people at one point that were just not a good fit within our organization, and we waited way too long to remove them, and it cost us severely. Everything we had built up was almost taken down in such a short period of time within one department. It was very scary, and something that I can't emphasize when you talk about this, and for the people listening, culture is something you focus on every single day. It's not oh, we'll do that on Fridays, or we'll do that at our monthly culture meeting. It's something that's happening every day, and if you're not controlling it, then it's going to decide and control itself.
I'm learning that right now as we grow and open and develop our business. And I was speaking with a operator in New York about that exact point. They opened these amazing, beautiful, humongous restaurants where they have 400 people on staff and multicultural, and these are gorgeous, pumping restaurants that are doing $15 to $20 million a year in sales, which is a very busy, hectic environment.
That's
right?
a big, big number.
Huge. I mean, and that's just a busy environment to work in and survive in. And I asked him, I said, how do you communicate with your people with so many different languages being spoken and so many different walks of life and ages and so forth, and how do you develop culture in an environment like this? And he said, he looked at me and said, that was one of the hardest things we had to figure out. And they use a tool. They have it's now an app that they have created to use internally. He said it started as a piece of paper that every single person would get with their time card or whenever they would check in that day, and it was 3 smiley faces, and it's a smiley face, a neutral face, and a frown face. And it says, how do you feel when you got to work, or when you're getting to work? How did you feel when you left work? Okay, so you get 2 sets of questions. Why? Do you have any suggestions on how we could change this for you, right? And he's not saying I have all the answers, but it is exactly what you said. He said every single person who worked there would fill it out every single day, and they learned so much about what was going on with the culture inside of their 4 walls. And also outside of their 4 walls, but what's that environment look like? And it is a moving, living thing, right? And they could always be involved with that, which I thought was genius.
And that one act changed their culture without them doing anything, of just asking. I mean, so many people miss that, where just asking employees, what's going on? How can we improve?
Totally.
And we, the higher up you get, you tend to, most people have this I have to have all the answers and I have to figure it out, and I am put in this position, and it couldn't be more different. The best leaders are understand that some of those people are going to have the best answers to all the solutions. I think that's phenomenal. That's really cool. You mentioned teamwork too. I think, we talk about culture a lot, and I've loved the definition when it's, a committed group of individuals working together to accomplish something great. And that I've seen so many times. It's people aren't scared of hard work. They're willing to work hard if they understand where their impact goes and how it impacts the greater whole. And when they're a part of something bigger, and you can look to your right and look to your left and see other people working just as hard, it inspires you and motivates you in pursuit of this bigger purpose of what we're all doing. And sometimes we joke like we're just selling some food, but it couldn't be more opposite. And at Footers we talk about creating an exceptional experience. Like, we're not here to cater your event, we're here to create an experience. And you mentioned that at Leven, how much focus you've had on the guest experience, and in interacting with a couple of your people, like, they get that. Talk a little bit about that and how you've been able to instill that pride of taking care of the guests and doing an outstanding, giving a really premium high-end service.
Awesome. Man, huge question. Thank you. So my mind is
sorry, there was a lot in there.
Miles an hour. It's a really, really tough. It's funny. It's complicated, right? It's really, really complicated. I think it boils down to how well do you know your own business. If you've ever been lucky enough to try to teach something to somebody else, it's a very humbling experience, and you realize how much or how little you know about that subject really quickly. And something as complicated as a moving, living business, to try to teach that to a set of people that may or may not work or have different, perspectives can be really, really tough. And so we tried really hard to boil down the components to what a successful guest experience is before in our training materials, and really, really hammer on it and explain it and and role play it and learn it and not be afraid to look funny or stupid or juvenile in order to understand the different perspectives so that our team could start to grasp those concepts and understand the why, why they're doing things. And I think you hit it so hard on the head. I call that concept, what you just articulated so perfectly, open book management. So it's being really transparent about what we're doing, what the costs are, what the benefits are, what the margins are. We have totally open book finances at Leven. Guests can see them if they're interested. Team is definitely encouraged to look at them and to learn them. We're in the process of getting all of them produce, but sales, every single figure, because it is a group sport, right? I think that it's also it's funny, I have a kind of a cynical concept too that this is driven by, which is restaurant industry is one where there's so many different hands in the pie, right? There's so many different people that a positive guest experience is relied upon, that there's so many people that can screw it up. Okay,
and it just takes one.
It just takes one dirty look, one bad comment, and so we're all on stage and we're all required, and that's tough, that's part of it, right? So if that is my belief, right? And I had an old boss who said it'd be such a great business if it weren't for all the people, right? But if all these people are necessary, and they totally are, how do we really get everybody moving in the same direction, right? So number one is establishing what that goal is, like you said, and then being totally transparent about it and being really making it really simple. Trying your best to make it really simple, and what is the goal of each position, and how do we reach that? What are the tools that we can use to get there? And then we constantly check in and coach on it as well. And creating that expectation from the get-go is key for us in order to create a safe, trusting environment where we can do that, where we can say, okay, if this is our vision, and we're the directors of our vision, like it's our play, and everyone working with us are the actors of it. We, as the directors, need to be able to give you acting cues in order to have you act a little bit differently, because that's our role and this is yours, right? And not to say that we're not both required here, right? So I hope that answers a little bit of that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when you're talking about expectations, that's people want to do a good job. I've said this numerous times on this show. I don't think people show up saying, "Man, I'm really going to do a crappy job at work today."
Totally.
Like no one does that,
Nobody.
Right? But it's over the course of 3 or 4 things that happen that lead people into a situation where they just don't care. And to me, when things go wrong, it's either you don't care or you don't know. And so if we can start there and understand that that's what causes some of this, but instead all this head trash gets in the way of they didn't want to do it, they didn't, all this other stuff, and we want to project it on them as opposed to looking at like, okay, what could I have done better? And so if we start from a place of people want to do a good job, it's our job, as you said, the director, and in my I call, my title's the coach, to set the expectations on here's what we want you to do, and here's what success looks like. And if you can do these things, you're going to be successful. And people know, okay, great, this is what I have to do. And it's not this moving target of like, I thought it was this, and like, oh, and now it's this. That confuses people and frustrates them to the point where they don't care.
100%. I think you, in articulating your answer, something that's always important to me is making it simple.
Yes.
And I'm naturally, I make things way more, I get creative and my mind goes in a lot of different directions, and I come up with these great grandiose ideas and concepts, and they're very opposite of simple, complicated, involved, etc., changing. And that's not the way the best businesses work, I'm convinced, and so it's keeping it simple is the hard part.
Well, but you move almost into a different idea of a visionary, and I think you have that vision. And so understanding some of that limitation too, that you probably have surrounded yourself with some people that do an even better job of making it very clear on some level what is expected and what's needed, and that can take your ideas and your creativity and boil it down to here's what we need to do next.
That's Luke. You know, he's he's realistic, and he executes, and he figures out what the resources are that are needed, and how can we do this, and can we do it simply, and how can we do it consistently, and can we do this in summer, fall, winter, spring, right? And he's the realistic one out of the two of us.
Sure.
So yin and yang.
That's what makes a good partner. You mentioned open book management and being transparent about financials. Did you have any reservations about that?
Great question. I did, because I hadn't really done it before, and so I didn't know what I didn't know. And I asked a couple people about it, and the concept isn't that widely used necessarily. I think it is in tech startups. I've read quite a bit that it is because they need to be. Other than that, in a lot of operating businesses, like a restaurant or retail is the space that we reside in, I don't think it's used too often. And I didn't know how it would feel as we went forward, but I saw it as kind of one of my ethics, I suppose, is being inclusive and being transparent and being honest. And those are goals of our business, right? Those are things that we want our business to embody. And so I was worried about, would this concern people? Would it scare people? Would it overwhelm people? Would we lose validity if we aren't able to produce an inventory until month X, and so forth. And it's a learning curve for sure. It's funny. Some people who I spoke to said, just by the notion that you are doing this or pursuing it, people will say, "Oh, that's so cool," and that's culture.
Yes.
Okay, and people will respond positively to that. And they said, out of 100 people who are going to come through your doors over the years, maybe 10 of them are going to actually be really interested in it. And out of those 10,
that's a good point.
Maybe 3 of them are going to routinely be checking in on them. And those are the people that want to grow and have a similar dream as you do. Right. And but they said, but the 100 know that you're okay with doing that, and that changes things. And so, that was reassuring, and that's exactly what's happened. People, some people are really interested in it and want to learn from it, and other people look at it once or twice and say, oh, okay, and that's something that I think we can get better at, is teaching P&L 101 and going over that as a team and huddling, if you will, like having quick meetings about it. And that's something that is an ongoing goal for us.
I love it. Information is so powerful, and when you can give that to some of your team members, it puts them at ease. And we talk about a lot of times that, if you don't tell people what's going on, they're going to make it up.
Totally.
And so, we've done some of those workshops at Footers where it's like, let's just talk about P&L and how this all works together, and how do we make money here at Footers.
Totally.
So that you can have a better understanding, and it's not dissimilar to how somebody lives their life. It's just, instead of paying bills, you're paying them to vendors instead of people, and there's a lot of things that coincide.
Scariest part's not knowing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where can people go for Leven Deli? Tell us where to go.
Our address is 123 West 12th Avenue. We are directly behind the Art Museum. Our website is eatleven.com. Our hashtag is Leven Deli Co. Or our Instagram handle. I'm behind the times.
That's all right.
Or call us at 303-325-5691.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Again, visit Leven Deli. That's 123 West 12th Avenue, right behind the Art Museum. And be sure to check out Footers Catering as well. And like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a great Anthony show today.
Thank you, Alex.